Welcome, everyone, to episode 187 of Missing Pieces. This is my weekly audio journal where I talk about what I'm up to and what I'm into. And this week we've got 2 weeks to cover because I took last week off because of Thanksgiving break, a break in which I spent an incredible amount of time working in this very space right here, down here in the Brickatech studio and the storage room of doom, which is just over my shoulder there. I spent about 5 days, believe it or not. I know that seems like, what could you get done in 5 days? Well, I got a lot done. I got this entire studio organized and cleaned, something that every Thanksgiving kind of forces me to do. And sometimes you need the pressure of a deadline to get things done. I'm a procrastinator at heart. If I can do something tomorrow, in fact, what is my phrase? Why do today what you can do tomorrow? It's terrible advice to live by, and I hesitate to even put it out there. But I like to have deadlines. Deadlines are good for me, and it's very bad because I don't really have many deadlines in my life outside of ones that I impose on myself, and that's kind of what this was. I knew my nephews were coming over for Thanksgiving. I wanted to have this place look really good. At the time when I started, before the 5 days was going, it looked absolutely awful down here. It was a nightmare of stuff everywhere, Lego stuff, you name it. It was insane. In that 5 days, I not only cleaned this place up and got the studio organized, but I also did some upgrades too, most of which you can't see right now. But I got a new desk. I got a couple new shelves installed, which that was a whole fiasco. I should say, if you're going to do something, particularly like drilling holes in your wall, measure everything twice before you go in, because these shelves that I put in, this is kind of a funny story. They're 39 and a half inches long. And in my mind, half of 39 and a half was 18 and a half or something like that. I can't remember what I came up with, but it was the wrong thing. What is it actually? Like 19.75. So when I finished the shelves, they look great. But as I stepped back to the stairs back there, I looked at them. I'm like, that top shelf looks like it's like an inch too far to the left. And lo and behold, once I got out my measuring tape, that's what happened. So I had to take a nice little trip to Lowe's. I felt like my father-in-law. He does a project, then it's like, how many trips to Lowe's do you have to take during this project? Took a trip to Lowe's, got some spackle. I got some fresh paint for the walls because I had been wanting to do that for a while. So this is kind of like something that needed to be done too, because it's like anytime a little touch up, you want to have some extra paint. And I used all the paint down here. I painted this entire place myself. I still have PTSD from doing it. Ended up fixing that up, put the shelf back up. Basically had to do the job twice, but now it looks fantastic. And I have a bunch of little Brickatech knickknacks sitting on there. If you want to see what the new shelf looks like, it's in place of my old Brickatech poster. You can watch a tour that I did this week. It's like a 30-minute tour of everything that I accomplished down here. But I got those shelves. I got this desk. I got a new mic arm. My setup here, it's probably looking a little weird, a little close, because I don't have one component that's actually coming in the mail today. Of course, I'm recording this. This is on Friday, December 1st. Happy Lego Advent Calendar Day. It's coming in the mail, and it's allowing me to move the camera ever so slightly down. Because otherwise, if I left this the way it was, you'd see I'd be like, my chin would be here, and you'd see nothing but like sky. So, we're still working on things, but I got a swivel for my TV over here. I've got a stand for my desktop PC. Everything that I did here was something that I imagined in my mind. I'm like, this would be really great to have. And I started looking on Amazon. I was looking at reviews. I was looking at options. I spent roughly $400 to make this setup exactly the way I want it. And I can say for 100% certainty that right now it is exactly the way that I want this to be, and I'm very happy with it. This will enable me to not only do my podcast, but this is where I edit. This is where I do my gaming, which is something that'll be kicking back up here. We'll talk about that. And then the Lego space is just completely clear and looking awesome, and it's probably the best that it's ever looked. So those days that I invested in that, I think were a really good investment. And it was just something that needed done, and I'm glad that I finished doing that. And it happened like literally the day before they got here. It was like right down to the wire, Wednesday night, right before Thanksgiving. I finished this place, vacuumed the floors, and I just stepped back, and I was like, wow, this is what I always want my life to be. I don't want to go back to having messes and things sitting everywhere. I don't want to have Lego just piles. I want everything to be like, this is the project I'm working on. That's what's out. Everything else has a place. And I can say I feel better in this space. It feels less stressful to me in the way that it is now. So I'm very happy with how it turned out. That takes us to the next day, which was Thanksgiving. Of course, the whole family came over here. We host Thanksgiving, and it was a lovely day. I would say the highlight obviously was having my nephews over. We always look forward to that, Clark included. And we played more Fortnite than you should probably legally be able to play. We had so much fun, so many wins too. Because my nephews, they're so good at these games. Clark and I are absolute noobs. These guys are sweaty boys, and we were getting Fortnite win after Fortnite win. It was getting ridiculous. But in addition to that, in the world of Greg's Arcade or Gamer Attack or whatever we're calling it, I didn't stream any of this. It was just a time for us just to hang out and enjoy being together. I learned Elden Ring from Landon. You guys remember a little while back I got the Elden Ring game from GameStop for $20, and he's played the game, I think he said 7 times through now, which is incredible. And I was like, let's just do a run. I just want to see like what your strategy is. And he was playing it, and man, that game is brutal. A lot of it seems to be just like retrying the same thing. Like he goes up to a boss and tries beating him over and over again until he finally does it. There's not really much story to speak of. I don't know if it's the game for me. Like if I'm looking for a long-term game to play in that style, I think I'm going to choose Skyrim over Elden Ring, but it doesn't mean that I don't want to give Elden Ring a fair run. I played it like one evening, and that was all I got into it. But he kind of inspired me to go back. But I would say like if I'm gonna invest like 100 hours in a game, I want like a cool story, and I want to like Skyrim just speaks to me, and I'm thinking about maybe making a little bit of a run. I also have Red Dead Redemption 2 that's needs finished. I'll have lots of time to play games over the next month or two, and again, we'll talk about that. There's a hint in the title of this video or this podcast. But we had a great time on Thanksgiving. Desserts were incredible. Tiff, my sister-in-law, I was like, how are we related? She's like my wife's brother's wife. So I was doing the calculations there. She made pumpkin roll. It was Nan's recipe, world famous pumpkin roll, and it was just the greatest. Cody made apple dumplings. They were amazing. It kind of overshadowed the pumpkin pie. I know like for most people, Thanksgiving, like pumpkin pie is your jam, right? Dude, apple dumplings and pumpkin roll together. So yeah, we didn't get on the scale at all since then. I don't want to know the bad news. Sometimes no news is good news. But we had a great time on Thanksgiving, and oh man, it was so fun with the nephews. They ended up having to leave the next day, which was actually kind of good because that was a day that Clarkman was having. He was going to a birthday party from his BFF at school. His name's Logan, aka Logie, and we took him over there in the evening. And this is like so wild. This story you're gonna love. His parents and him are like the exact same as my family. It was so weird. Like Logan is like the bizarro Clark man. And then his mom is a high school social studies teacher. My wife is a high school English teacher. The husband, he does like patio work, so we don't have that in common, but he took me into his collectible room, and this dude is a huge fan of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. He has like all this stuff in box, on card. He's got the arcade 1-up Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game. He's got a PlayStation 5. He's got vintage Star Wars collectibles. I'm just like, dude, like we were just vibing in there, and I was just like, how crazy is this? Like Clarkman made this friend, and then it seems very likely that we, like Cody and I, Mrs. Brickatecta, she's known in some circles, we could most certainly be friends with his parents. Maybe this is the start of something pretty big. So I was just really crazy to see like how similar we all were. And they were talking about how Logie is an only child. He lives on a road where there's not really any kids, and he's just looking for a buddy, and Clark is like the same way. So I was just like, this is perfect. What more could you ask for? Speaking of Clark, man, we ended up having his parent-teacher conference thing like right before Thanksgiving. Cody, it was on Monday and Tuesday. I think she was doing her conferences, but she was able to escape for a little bit to go to his. And I'll tell you what, his teacher, first of all, she's incredible. But during our meeting there, she informed us that she believes that Clarkman should be in gifted classes. And I was just like, wow. Like she said he's doing incredible. Apparently his reading level is at like just over a 5th grade level, and he's doing great in math. And she thinks that would be a good option for him. Now, that being said, apparently it's very difficult to get into these gifted classes. In fact, you have to score such a high score on these tests that they give you that within the school that Clark is in, which is kindergarten through 3rd grade, and I would say maybe 350 kids, There are exactly 2 kids that are in the gifted program there. Gifted would be, I think our school called it enrichment. It's kind of like a thing where you're kind of excelling past your peers in your grade group, and they give you like some extra things and some more challenges to do. So she's thinking that he's on the cusp, like in terms of scores, to be able to get into this, and maybe he'll be number 3. But she said even if he doesn't get in, because it's very hard to do, she's going to do everything she can to really keep pushing him this year and giving him challenges to try to keep him progressing. And I have to say, like last year at this time when we had our parent teacher conference with his teacher in 2nd grade, she basically at the same time, she said the same thing. She's like, Clark is at like a 3rd grade level right now. He it has surpassed everything that we're going to do this year in terms of 2nd grade, but there's really nothing that we can do for him. And I was like, I don't know, not disgruntled, but I was like disheartened by that. Like, okay, so he's going to spend the next 7 months with you just being here. And I kind of feel like that's what happened. Luckily, like he didn't regress at all. And now it seems like he's even further ahead than what he would have been before. But man, I couldn't tell you how darn proud I was when she gave us that news that she was like considering him or considers him to be gifted. I was just like, wow, that is so freaking awesome. And we hyped him up so hard, and we made a big old deal of it. In fact, the thing that we did over the weekend was a celebration of such things, but we'll get there in just a moment. I was just blown away. But it just goes to show you, like for me, what the power of having a really good teacher can be. Like the fact that last year in 2nd grade, he was at like a 3rd grade level and essentially just told like, good job. And now this year he's at like a 5th grade level in 3rd grade, and she's still pushing. Man, that's awesome. And she also said like next year Clark is going to go to 4th grade, which will put him into like a different school. What is it, like a primary school? And then like, is it like secondary and then like middle school? It was never like that when I was in school. We had like 1st through 6th or kindergarten through 6th in the same building. But she's going to note his account. So whatever teacher he gets next year is going to be able to see like his level where he's at and her thoughts on such things. So I'm hoping that in 4th grade, he once again gets a teacher that's all about pushing forward, because she's going above and beyond for him. Like she is creating extra assignments for him, giving him the option to do things. She knows that he loves being creative and he loves space, and she recommended maybe he could write a report on, his favorite planet. At which point he was kind of like, But then she's like, well, how about you and Logan do a project together? And he was all about that life. It's interesting too, because Logan, I think, could be helped by Clark, because the way Clark explains it is he has ADD or ADHD, so it's very hard for him to contain himself, and he also oftentimes gets into disciplinary issues. But maybe like them two together, maybe that could be like a nice bond that maybe both of them can like boost each other up in some way. So I'm just a pretty darn proud dad of Clark, man, in that moment, and it was just like awesome. I'm not crying, you are. Anyways, I guess I got to start pushing Clark, man, too. No, I push him in the world of Lego building, but we got to push him in everything. Okay. I'll move on. People gloating about their kids, it's the last thing you want to hear. But hey, when you're proud, and you got to share with whoever's willing to listen, and that's you. You're here. That Friday night after we dropped him off at Logie Bears, he had a blast there, by the way. We went to hang out with our friends, Sarah and Andy. They're in from Vermont, and we had some other friends over there, too, that we graduated with. And I'm happy to announce that while we were there, they had Home Alone 1 and 2 on, the single greatest movies, in particular Christmas movies of all time. So I got my first watching in of those. And we had a lovely time there that night while Clark was having a good time on his own. I guess that was our date night. We went to hang out with our friends, and it was a good time for all. Now, over the weekend, things got real fun, and this is where Clark's I guess his reward came in, even though we set this up well before we knew how he was doing in school. But I think it's fun to give kids like that encouragement, like, hey, this is all because of you. We ended up getting this incredible deal on Camelback Resort, Aquatopia Indoor Water Park. Now, we had been to Camelback Resort this summer, and you would have seen a video of us riding all these water slides outside there. Well, they have an indoor park as well and a hotel. And Cody somehow, I don't know what she's signed up for, but she gets like these travel deals quite often. And this one was $150, gets you a night at the resort, at Camelback Resort, or Camel Beach, or what. I think Camelback is the resort and Camel Beach is their outdoor water park. Camelback Resort, and also 2 days basically. You can do the first day and the second day at their indoor water park, Aquatopia. And to put that in perspective, a typical ticket for Aquatopia water park for one person is about $80. So for the three of us to go there, it would have been $240. And then to stay the night would have, God knows what, probably another couple $100. So like a $500 turned into like 150. And that included parking and all the fees and everything. So the only thing we would have to pay for there is food, which they kind of got you on the food. And we spent actually more on food than we spent on the whole trip there. But we had what could be considered the greatest time ever. Clark and I, Cody's not really into the water park scene, and she had all these essays she needed to grade, so she took those along with her. And I tried everything I could to sell her on the water rides and things, but she's just like, no, I'm not really into it. So I was like, all right, Clark and I will go run. And she kind of did this for us. It's her kid and her big kid. So Clark and I just went wild on these rides or slide rides. And it was insane because it was so dead there. I guess maybe it was Sunday. The Sunday after Thanksgiving really isn't a popular time to be going to an indoor water park, it seems. So we were just, every time we would go down a slide, we'd go right back and get right back on. And just running these over and over again. We did the wave pool. We did the hot tub. We did the whole thing there. Other than like the little kiddie area and then the slides that drop you down. I did the outdoor ones of that where they drop you, and it's not fun. You just kind of go so fast and water shooting your face. You don't even get to enjoy the experience. So we did all like the 2-man things, and then we did the one where you had like the mat that you go down on your belly. We did the one where you just go down by yourself. We got some pizza for lunch, which in terms of pizza, like 5 out of 10, but in terms of like water parks, maybe like an 8 out of 10. You're not going to get your original Italian pizza at Camelback Resort, but it was filling, and we had so much fun. But the crazy thing is, like, we got there pretty early, and then we dominated the place, and by the time we were kind of just like, hey, I think we're done here, it was still pretty early. It was like 4:00, and our options were to either go back to the room and kind of just hang out, wait for dinner, or there were some outlets down the road that we passed by, Pocono outlets. This is in the Pocono Mountains in eastern Pennsylvania, by the way. That's how it's like a ski resort, and then water park. It's the whole kit and caboodle. So we decided to go shopping at the outlets, and we had a good time. It started raining, and it was cold and rainy, but we made the best of it. I ended up getting a sweatshirt and a t-shirt. It was one of those things where they had all their Black Friday sales and deals and stuff, and by the time I made it through, all of the normal, I won't say normal sizes, but all like the mediums and large sizes were gone. But if I was like 2XL, I could have swept that whole place. I could have had probably like an entire wardrobe of clothing at double extra large. But when you're the average size, I guess that's the stuff that gets bought up the fastest. But I found a couple cool things, and I was excited. Cody found a few things. Clark, man, he was just along for the ride. He brought a Transformer with him, I think. And then we went back to the resort after that, and we went to dinner at Trails End, which is like their, I think you can ski right up to it, because they had a spot where there was like, you can store your equipment. Of course, I don't think anyone was skiing that day. They also have like a little fire pit thing outside that you can rent and hang out there, which is cool, but it was raining. So we just had dinner there, and the dinners were good. We got burgers. I got a Jack Daniels burger, and Clark Man got the brisket coated in barbecue sauce, both of those. Cody got a really healthy little, I think, swordfish or salmon or something. You know how that goes. But man, we had a time, and that was kind of like a wrap for the night. Went back, basically went to bed, and got the next day and drove home. That was our last day of break, and that was the end of it. Not the only break this week, though, as we'll talk about. Tuesday, back to school day for Clark Man. Fortunately, though, I almost said unfortunately, but fortunately, before he left, being that we had this nice clean studio space here, we started on a little bit of a project that we've been working on all week. And that, my friends, is our Lego amusement park. This is something that I've been wanting to do forever. And I've been overwhelmed by it. First of all, the table was always a mess, so that kind of was a deterrent. But then I made like this silly arbitrary rule that I was like, anything that goes into our Lego amusement park, it has to be from us. It can't be a Lego product. But I found that to be very overwhelming. It's like, okay, I want to build a Ferris wheel from scratch. How am I going to do that? I found when I was doing the Storage Room of Doom cleaning, I ended up finding this Legoland set that's like it is like a little mini Legoland, which has a roller coaster, an entrance, some rides, all this stuff. And I was like, this would be a great jump off point for us to do this amusement park. So Clark and I spent a few days working on that and building it, and he was just hyped. He was loving it. And we've been having so much fun with that set since then. We've been customizing it, making it our own. And I think that's what the secret is. It's not making your own thing, because that's overwhelming, but taking something that Lego makes and being like, okay, what can I do to make this my own, or to make it better, at least in my opinion? Add pieces on, take pieces away, change the colors. And then over time, as Clark and I continue to do this, we're going to fill this entire table. I can fit 21 base plates on there. If you've ever done Lego before, which some of you have, you know what like a modular base plate looks like. I can fit 21 of those on there, and they're all going to be linked together in a way that if we ever want to change something out or like retire a certain section of the park, you can just pull that one section out and then put a new one in. So this could be an ongoing thing forever. And as much as I've been wanting to do this for years, I can't help but feel that this is the ultimate time to do it, because Clark just seems to be the perfect age for this. And he is so interested in this aspect of Lego building. He likes Lego sets like any kid does, but his favorite thing with Lego is to make his own things. So this is like us together working on this project, making a Lego amusement park. And I know that as this thing goes on and as I look at it, I'm thinking years down the road, as I look back on this park, you're going to see all these little memories that we created over time. And instead of just having it be something that's in my mind, it's going to be a physical thing there of something that we work together on. And I think it's going to create one of those core memories that he'll have in the future as well, where it's like, man, I remember when I was 8, my dad and I started working on this amusement park, and man, it turned into this awesome thing that we spent all this time on, and we did it together. And I'm hyped on it. So that is what we're up to in the world of Lego. Again, I also did a whole tour here that you can see on my channel if you want to go through all of the stuff that as it stands as of November of 2023. Today, of course, is December. We started getting into the advent calendars this morning, the City and Star Wars ones. So we're having fun with that. And I got a lot of things that I want to do in the world of Lego. And it's my goal. If I can do it, I'd love to do some daily videos over there where I'm just kind of like working on things. It's so much easier to share something in Lego than it is to share your day every single day. To find something interesting about your day that you've lived over and over again, and you're doing kind of like the same things. But you know, I kind of, in one of my recent videos, I threw it out to my audience. I was like, hey, should I just share like the one special thing of the day, or do you just kind of want to go along on the ride? And I have a feeling that most people that watch religiously probably want to go along for the ride. So for that reason, and because I've committed to this, I'm continuing on through it each day. Speaking of each day, I told you the good part of this week. That was the beginning of the week. Now let me tell you about the bad part of this week, and that happened yesterday. Put Clarkman onto the bus, and this is where the title of this episode comes into play. Put Clarkman on the bus yesterday, and then I was going to come downstairs here to do some video editing, get some work done. I grabbed my coffee, iced coffee. Cody makes for me every day, which I appreciate. It's something I truly look forward to. And I called Roxy over because she likes to come down with me, and sometimes the door closes, and I hear her up there like snorting and sniffing at the bottom of the door, so then I always have to let her up. So I open the door for her, and she starts coming down, and I start coming down behind her, and somehow, when I got to the bottom step, these stairs right here, I come down every single day, multiple times. My left foot missed the last step, the final one, and my foot hit the floor down here, and then went like that. Like if you're listening, my toes basically like went under my foot, like back towards like where your heel would be, if you can imagine what that's like. Instantly, I was in an incredible amount of pain. I didn't drop my coffee or fall to the ground. It just kind of happened, and I was like, oh my gosh. And I came over here, set my coffee down, I sat down on the couch and just like in pain. And then all of a sudden, this most bizarre thing happened to me. I started like shivering and shaking, and like my teeth were chattering, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I think I did something bad here. So I messaged Cody, and you know, as I'm looking at my foot's swelling up pretty bad. I messaged Cody, and I'm like, hey, I think I just hurt myself. And I explained what happened, and she's like, you need to go to MedExpress right now. And I was like, what if I just wait a couple days? I think this is like the classic guy response. I'm like, let me just wait a couple days and we'll see if it goes away. I probably just rolled my ankle. She's like, you need to go. So I was like, okay, happy wife, happy life, right? And just to get confirmation that it was nothing, I made an appointment with MedExpress, which is like urgent care. And the first available appointment was 11 o'clock. So I was like, all right, this isn't too terrible. I can just, I'm just sitting here. It doesn't hurt when you're sitting down. It kind of hurts when I walk and stand up. So I got more video editing done. It kind of took my mind off of it. My appointment time came up, so I went there. And I sat down at my appointment at 11 o'clock, and I sat there until about 12 o'clock. And I was like, what in the world is taking so long? I was messaging Cody, and she's like, why don't you just call our doctor? Maybe they can get you in today. So I called them, and they could get me in at 2. So I went up and I went to cancel my appointment. And I was like, yeah, I've been sitting here for an hour. And she's like, well, appointments really don't mean anything. It kind of just reserves your spot here, but it's a walk-in, like an order of walk-in is how this operates. So like, this is how silly it is. If you made an appointment for 11 o'clock like I did, and say at 10:56, 10 people walk in that all have ailments or whatever, they would see those 10 people that walked in at 10:56 before you who made an appointment for 11. So it was just silly to do that. Like, I should have just went there right away. But I just ended up leaving. And she's like, you sure? I was like, yeah. Because I figured like they were probably going to charge me more than whatever my doctor was too. And the fact they were just getting me in a couple hours is great. But it was a couple hours. So I ended up going back home. In the meantime, because I'm such a stand-up eBay dude, I ended up taking a package to the post office. Walking was absolutely excruciating, but I was like, I got to get this package out today. I ship within the next business day, which was stupid. Cody called me an idiot. Probably true. I got that package out, came home, sat for a bit with my foot up, and I was like, oh God, that's not looking good. So I went to my main doctor, who I should say, the day we came back from Camel Beach, I went there for my yearly checkup. I started going there 1 year ago just to get on the books in case something like falling down the stairs happens. Went there a year ago, saw a doctor, was like, you're all good, you're healthy, great. Went back this year on Tuesday or Monday, and he's like, yeah, all good, you're great. I was like, all right, I'll see you in a year. I'm sure everything will be the same. And you know, we're just gonna keep me on the books, right? And he's like, yep, sounds good. Literally 2 days later, I'm back. 3 days later. The worst jinx that I've ever done to myself in the history of jinxdom was done that day. Never say anything like that. You got to knock on wood. You got to knock on whatever you can. Knock on your head. Ended up going back. The girl's like, weren't you just here? I was like, yeah. I was like, I decided that the last step wasn't important. So I just, just jumped it. And she looked at it. She's like, oh, that is really swollen she's like, did that just happen today or was that yesterday? I was like, that just happened today. She's like, that's really swollen. I was like, I know. I have to shout out my mother-in-law too. She might be listening. I couldn't get my shoes on. Just even putting a sock on that foot was excruciating. I couldn't get my regular shoes on. Even like my little Skechers shoes that I bought, my old man shoes. You know what saved me? The Crocs. I made fun of Crocs for years. And then my mother-in-law got me in the Croc gang as like a joke, maybe. But then I realized how great they were. And I'll tell you what, when you hurt your foot really bad and it's swollen all to get out, putting Crocs on is a gift from the gods. So I wore Crocs in there. First time, like I've worn them out in public, I guess, before. But, it was like, it didn't feel great. Anyways, the physician assistant comes in and she... It was like this young college girl, kind of cute, you know what I'm saying? And like I had to take my socks and stuff off, and she sees my ogre feet, and she's like feeling different spots. She's like, does it hurt here? Does this hurt? And like things were good in terms of ligaments, but like it was the top of my foot was where all the swelling was. Again, imagine your foot's flat and then all of your toes and stuff just go back under your foot. Imagine those bones, what happens to those. And that's what we did imagine what happened to those bones, because she referred me over to radiology within the hospital to go get some x-rays, which was another sucky experience because I parked in the regular parking lot and had to walk or more hobble myself into the main entrance. Radiology is right there, but then I had another long hallway to walk down. And the whole time I'm just like, oh my God, this is terrible. Again, I'm still thinking that this is just like gonna go away in a few days. This is just like I rolled something, I sprained, whatever. They take the x-rays and I was like, so how's it look? And they're like, we can't tell you. We're not like, they can't legally say, I guess. Probably got sued when they told someone they did or didn't have a broken bone at one point. So now they can't say anything. You have to wait here from your doctor. So I hobbled myself out of there with just mystery still after getting x-rays. I was thinking they'd give me like yeah, you broke something, or no, you're all good. Get back in my car, come home. In the meantime, Yemi comes over to save the day. She brings over my favorite meal, Sloppy Joe's. Again, not only saving me with the Crocs, but also bringing over dinner for us. And I download the app from the hospital, and then I could see the results. They were in there fairly quickly. And I read, as I was reading, I basically got a phone call that I have two broken bones in the top of my foot. Essentially, the two bones that hold your four little toes, everything but your big toe, the two bones that hold those together were fractured. It's your cuboid and navicular bones are the bones that I broke. So imagine, like, if you're looking at your hand, it's the bones that would be like in your actual hand part, towards your wrist, not your wrist, not your fingers, because your fingers are longer than what they seem. The things that hold all that together. So that explained why it hurt so bad and why it was so swollen. Cody wrapped it up for me, and then we put a bag of frozen peas on it, which was a nice relief. But I just spent the last night, like, we're almost caught up in real time here. I spent last night just kind of chilling. We watched TV, had my sloppy joes, which I feel like may have healing powers. I was thinking maybe eating Yemi's delicious sloppy joes, my favorite meal she makes. I was thinking maybe that would just fix my foot. Unfortunately, it didn't quite have enough power to do that. So I was left with them saying that today I would get a phone call from not only the hospital about crutches of all things, but also an orthopedic specialist that I would go get to see. They did call me this morning, and we're almost in real time actually. They were going to get me in on Tuesday at 8:20 in the morning, and I'm like, Tuesday? I was like, dude, that's like 5 days after this happened. I kind of want to like get this resolved and figure out like what my fate is. Am I going to have a little boot on? Am I going to have a cast? Are you going to have to drill into my feet and put pins in there? Are we just going to exist as normal and just let nature take its course of getting this back together? I didn't know. So I said, listen, I work from home. I don't say that I don't work at all, but I like to say I work at home. I said, I can come in any time today if you have an available spot, because I need to go get my crutches anyway. So if I could do all this in one shot, that would be lovely. And I was like real sweet to the lady, because, sometimes you catch more flies with honey than you do vinegar. Is that the thing? I don't know. Anyways, she called me back shortly thereafter, and she's like, we can get you in today at 2:20 if you're available. I said, I'm absolutely available. I'll be there. So in 2 hours and 10 minutes from right now, I'm going to go into an orthopedic specialist to have them look at my foot, and they're going to figure out what the next plan is, which I can't report on now, but I can come back next week. And I vlogged this whole thing. So you'll actually get to see what all this was like. But I'm going to do that, get some crutches. I guess I'm going to be crutched up for a little bit. But I was thinking, man, crutches is going to be so nice for getting around, because right now I'm like putting my weight on my good foot, and then my other one I kind of just like bring along, and I'm just like hurting the whole time. But if I can get all the weight off that foot, I think I'll be able to get around pretty good. The only downside is all the stairs in our house, which really is like, if we ever build another house or get another house or becomes like our forever house, we need to definitely make sure that's a single story, because all it takes is one little thing like this. And it got me thinking, like, when I was at my checkup, the guy was like, yeah, of your age, you're in, because I told him, like, I'm trying to lose some pounds. He's like, oh, this is weird, a doctor to say this. He's like, you're in great shape. You don't need to lose any weight. He's like, why do you want to lose weight? I said, I just want to, I want my clothes to fit better. Clothes that I was wearing years ago, I just feel like they're a little tighter. He's like, you're fine. You're getting a little bit older. And I was like, older? My doctor's younger than I am. I actually felt old. But then it got me thinking too about this foot thing. I was like, had I been 20 years younger, I wonder if I would have taken that step and like my foot kind of would have went backwards, but none of the bones would have had any issues. I just wonder. And then I also am left wondering, and I guess this is a question I'll ask today and hopefully get resolved. Like, is there going to be any long-term issues with this? Is this going to be something that I feel going forward? Is it going to cause issues? I started looking online, which is a terrible thing to do. And they're like, oh, it can cause like arthritis in your older years if you have a broken foot area that I have. I'm just like, okay, let's forget all that. People go through injuries all the time, oftentimes way more catastrophic than a couple fractured bones in the top of their foot. We'll get through this. Everything will be fine. I can bring people with me on this journey. I wanted No 0 Days to be interesting. It doesn't get much more interesting than breaking a bone. Somehow I made it through my entire life without breaking a bone, although there is some speculation that a couple years ago I may have broken my ribs. In fact, I've done this twice now. Clark and I were out sled riding, and there's a video on this. Actually, you can watch me break my ribs. I went down the dune drop out there, and I hit into a fence post with my ribs, metal fence post, and it was excruciating pain that was very similar to the pain that I felt yesterday. And that resulted in me for about 3 weeks not even being able to lay down in bed. Everything was uncomfortable, and I'm thinking that I might have cracked something back then. I never went to the doctor, never did anything about that, and I guess it was wishful thinking that I could do that through this. But man, it sucked. It also got me thinking too, like, what if I was on the Appalachian Trail and something like this happened? What would I do then? How would I get out of there? I guess you just have to push on, which I can walk. I mean, I walk down here. I got a shower today. I can stand on it. It just sucks. So that was the good and the bad of this week. We went from one break to another, a whole new break. But yeah, I'm very thankful to have a caring family. Like I said, Yami was right over here. Cody was nothing but trying to be helpful last night. Even Clark, man, he felt bad and he was trying to do things for me. So I was giving him like little jobs that would help me out from having to take steps. I was like, hey, can you shut off the lights down in the studio? Can you unplug my camera? All this stuff. But that's where we're at today. I'm sure many of you have been through worse. And I'm hoping if this is the worst I ever go through, I think I'm in good shape. That kind of gets us caught up on things. I'm going to be crutched up this afternoon. I think this is going to be just a week of us chilling. I've got a Lego set that we're going to be getting into tomorrow as a family that I'm looking forward to. I'm just going to be hanging out and I guess watching stuff. Which, speaking of watching things, I should tell you something that we started watching this week that's so good. Avatar, not the blue ones. Avatar: The Last Airbender, a Nickelodeon show. I could not believe how well done this show is. My gosh, the animation, the color, the voice acting, the story. It's so amazing. It's, I think, about 54 episodes, somewhere in that range. It's like 3 seasons. It's the story of Aang, who is an airbender. He's the avatar. An avatar is a person that can control all the elements. So air, earth, water, and fire. And for years, everyone lived in harmony. And that was until about 100 years ago when Fire Nation, of course it's Fire Nation, they started going to war with all the other different factions. And there's people that can do different kinds of bending, but the Avatar is the only one that can do bending of all of the things like water, wind, all of that. Now he's an airbender right now, and I should say how he came to be. For 100 years there was no Avatar. The guy disappeared, but Aang was found by this brother and sister in a block of ice. He's like in an iceberg. And now he's like befriended them, and he's like the hope for humanity to survive. So he needs to somehow learn these other bending techniques, from what I understand. Like this is the book of water, so he's going to hopefully, I guess, learn to bend water in this episode or in this season. But there's the Fire Nation that's still there, and this kid that's such a jerk, that's like the fire leader. I forget his name, but I know I'm not like doing a great job of selling this, but this is one of those shows that transcends generations. It's hard to find as a parent. It's hard to find a thing that you and your 8-year-old son can like simultaneously. This is that show. And it turns out they're making a live action version, which is cool because I'm getting huge monkey. Why do I say Monkey Kid? It's not Monkey Kid. That's the Lego theme. I'm getting huge One Piece, Monkey D. Luffy. I'm getting huge One Piece vibes from this show. And I'm like, this kid is just like Luffy, and his friends are just like the other people, and they're on like this big quest. And I watched the trailer for the live action. I'm like, dude, this is going to be incredible. This is the One Piece that I'm looking for. So yeah, I'm hyped on it. We've watched like 10 episodes. We're cranking through. Clark and I love the show. So I think we'll be doing a lot of that while I'm recuperating, get my feet up, and I guess watch some Avatar. And that's another thing I want to say. This is a great time for something like this to happen. First of all, I got to go to the water park last week. That was a lot of stairs that I would not be able to climb right now. And it's not summertime. So by summer, I'm going to be back in business. What better time to get hurt than in December, right? Well, I'm gonna be kind of laid up for Christmas even still, I think. If say the natural course of things, and this is just me speculating. I'll have more information next week. Say the natural course of things is 6 to 8 weeks. That's like mid-January, end of January. So welcome to my life. This is my life now, I guess. But we got you all caught up. That's everything that happened. Lots of good news, and just one minor setback. If had that not happened, this would have been a great 2-week span. And we're in business. Speaking of business, you guys have some things that you want to talk about. This is from 2 weeks ago, so you're gonna have to really jog back in your memory, unless you're listening to these in rapid succession, for all the things we talked about. Starting with Samuel. He says, hello, Greg. This is listener feedback, by the way. He says, it's good to see you, or hear you, I guess, in my case. I didn't see any abnormalities in the Spotify side of things, so I think you're good on that front. I talked about how I updated the episode numbers. I thought I'd be all fancy and update those. And then like it messed everything up on Anchor. So thankfully Spotify is okay. He says, giving things another chance is not only something that applies to TV shows, but also to life. This is something I'm reminded of all the time, and I'm typically so grateful for that reminder. I'm so excited to hear about your Thanksgiving. My Thanksgiving has taken an unfortunate turn, though. I'll let you decide if you want to include this in 2 weeks. I include it. You share it, I include it. He says, I don't mind if you share. He says, last night, my significant other and I ended up splitting up. I'm telling you this because you gave me a reason to smile today. Your content is very therapeutic for me. You were there through all the positives of this year, but also the negatives of the year, very much like this episode. I learned. I'm so grateful. Her and I have been friends over a decade, and we enjoyed our conversations when we were together in a closer form. So we're planning on keeping up communication. I didn't mean for this to become Sam Mopes. I just want to let you know what was happening. Thank you, Greg. You're now an essential part of my life. Have a glorious Thanksgiving. Well, thank you, Sam. I'm sorry to hear that happen, but I'm happy that I could help you in any way that I can, even if it's just me rambling on about my broken foot for 40 minutes. Oh man. Yeah, that's a tough thing. I can't really give you any advice on breakups. I've been with the same girl for 20 years now, it seems. I mean, 20 years. Oh my gosh, it's been 20 years. But sometimes things are meant to be and sometimes they're not. And I find in my experience that life always seems to work. Things always seem to work out. I look at life and my occupation almost like we're swinging through the jungle on vines. And I'm sure I've talked about this before. So if you heard this before, just jump along with me here. Sometimes you're on one vine and you're swinging real good, but then sometimes you get to the end of that vine and you got to reach for another one, and you just got to have faith that that next vine is always going to be there. And I truly believe that that vine is always there for us. And then you just hit that vine and you see where that one takes you. And sometimes you might not always be traveling the same path, like Spider-Man, as he's hitting his webs. He's sometimes going this way, he's going that way. And I don't mean to make light of a breakup, but this is, I guess, my way of like explaining how maybe sometimes, things are meant to be, and you're just things are always going to be okay. All right. But again, I appreciate you letting me into your life. And that applies to all of you. I know many of you guys just listen in while you're driving or working or doing whatever you're doing. In fact, we'll hear from some of you first-time commenters. So it's cool that you care enough, or maybe you're bored enough just to listen to me go on about everything that's happening in life. And I love doing this, even if it is for a very small but particular audience. I appreciate you. Next one comes from Cyber Productions, who sent us a care package that we finally opened. I was waiting for the right time to do it. I'm like, Clark, we got to open this. And we ate a bunch of stuff out of there. It was pretty fun. He says, sometimes you don't know what you're about to miss out on if you say no, don't do something, or return something. You seem to enjoy the DJI Pocket Cam. This is what last episode was about. I almost returned it. Then I was like, actually, I think this could fit into my golf bag, because there's a different club for every shot. He says, I was surprised when you said you may get rid of it. It's crazy you had it all packed up, decided to try it out some more. I really don't experience a situation, and I cannot remember the last time something like that happened to me. I always do an insane amount of research on things before I buy them. I do too. But sometimes the hype gets you, Sometimes you watch these videos and you're like, oh my gosh, that is that camera's so beautiful. But then you realize you're just sharing your regular life. You're not out there making Steven Spielberg movies. I'm not making the next Jurassic Park. I'm just shooting what I'm doing. So it's do I really need all that? Sometimes you can get gear acquisition syndrome, gas, and I find myself there. And I think I bought into the hype a little hard with that camera. He says, I absolutely did laugh at the video of you and Clark with the Star Wars stuff. He's talking about The Worst Jedi. I enjoyed all the references and the stuff Clark did. He's a funny guy, but I'm a pretty big Star Wars fan. I totally understand taking 2 weeks off. Take as much time as you need to be with the family. It's so important for many reasons. Hope you had a fantastic Thanksgiving day. I'm thankful for my life, my family, my health. Facts. Don't forget about your health. Slightly improving. Everything I have and I can still do. See you in a few weeks. That's a great way of thinking about it. I was watching this old guy walk into the hospital place yesterday as he walked out all gingerly, and I was hobbling in. I'm like, oh, I'm jealous of you. But it's hey, I still got my arms. I was able to drive myself here. I'm still able to think. I'm able to talk. I'm able to do everything that I do. This is not that bad, right? And I think that Cyber definitely has the right idea there, especially someone that's going through health issues. Next one is from One Clever Pig. He or she says, I look forward to this podcast every week now. It's a Sunday evening tradition. That's what I love. He says, I like your leading the horse to water comment. I talked about how I always try to get people to start making YouTube channels, and you can pull them along, but it's hard to make someone actually do something that they're not like really into, as much as you can kind of stir them into it a little bit. He says, I decided to try my hand at making a Lego channel this year. I set a goal for a video per week. How about that? Family and full-time job come first, and I hope for 250 subscribers. I'm on the cusp of hitting 500, which makes me happy. Always trying to improve too. I love that. Oh man, that fills my heart with joy there. He says, you spoke last week about hating rally racing on Gran Turismo 7. Totally appreciate that. You hit a bump and your car gets sent into the stratosphere. Yeah, they should put wings on them. He says, that said, I believe you can platinum the game if you want. It's not as hard as I thought. One of the only 2 games that have gotten a platinum on. Bloodborne, if you're interested. Bloodborne is like Elden Ring. You pick the hardest games to platinum. I'm going to platinum Barbie's Horse Racing Adventure. I think I can probably get the platinum in that one. He says, anyways, have an excellent week, and I look forward to the next one. Well, thank you for commenting. Congrats on your channel. Dude, you're doing the 2 things that you need to do to be successful. It's only 2 things. Showing up and being consistent. You do those 2 things. I truly believe you can be successful at anything. Within reason. I mean, it has to be within your abilities. Like, I don't think if I show up on the basketball court and I'm consistently shooting shots that I'm going to make in the NBA, but I certainly think that I would get better at basketball, right? Even that's a far cry now. I have to go out there in my wheelchair at this point, but show up, be consistent, especially on YouTube. If you do those things once a week, that's great. You make a video once a week, your audience knows, like, hey, every Sunday, for example, this channel puts out something that I enjoy. I'm going to tune into that on Sunday, and I'm going to watch or listen to it, and it's gonna be a part of my life, and that's what you can do if you're consistent with things. Next one comes from Janelle. Thank you for the comments, by the way, guys. Janelle says, thanks for answering my question from the Greg's World video about whether you're keeping the camera. The beanie contraband is funny. I love Clark's smuggling method. We're talking about smuggling Pokemon cards into school, and we actually got some feedback on that. That was like the topic that seemed to get people going a little bit here. Starting with Tracy, a repeat offender, also a survivor. She says, on the subject of Pokemon cards at school, I have some insights. From my years in education, being the leader of a Pokemon club at a card shop, there are a lot of issues that come up. See, this is why I love listener feedback, because I can give my perspective on things as an ignorant fool, where I'm like, why can't Clark Man have Pokemon cards at recess? And then other people come in that have way more knowledge than I have with a whole nother perspective, and then make me realize that I've been wrong the entire time. Let's continue. There are a lot of issues that come up. At the schools, kids lose cards or they're stolen. I didn't even think about kids stealing cards. Yeah, that would be like the one thing that I think they'd have a problem with. Some kids trade fake cards or lesser value cards and intentionally or unintentionally rip kids off. The schools here went from handing the cards out once a month as an incentive to banning them altogether because of all the negative behaviors kids were having with them. It sucks when people ruin it for everyone. At the Pokemon Club, one of the things I do is help kids trade fairly and learn how to tell what a fake card looks like, as many of them have been taken advantage of before, and we want our club to be a good experience. It's really more complicated than it appears. I love that. You're doing a lot of good for those kids, and that's awesome. We have another comment here, too, from a former elementary school building principal by the name of Ronnie, also a Pokemon enthusiast. He sees every aspect of this. He's like the watcher. He says, I thought I'd provide some insight on the whole no toys on the playground thing. Any kind of school policy that I ever supported or enforced came from the place of protecting the learning environment. Sometimes that's obvious things like no weapons or things like that. Other times it's not allowing people to do things that might cause distractions to the learning environment, and toys can certainly do that. I know the argument is, well, they're at recess, there isn't any learning happening there, but so often things that happen on the playground wind up finding their way into the classroom as well. The other things to consider that I hadn't is creating disparity between students. Some kids can't afford toys, and I've seen a lot of feelings get hurt when we did allow toys during recess that wound up causing issues in the classroom as well. I can certainly see both sides of it, but as someone who wanted to minimize the amount of problems during the school day as much as possible, it was better for us just to not allow toys at school. And I think that's well said, and as a parent, I completely understand, because you don't want kids to feel bad. Like when you see Johnny and Jimmy trading these awesome Pokemon cards and you don't have any cards, how does that make you feel? Just in the world of Pokemon, not to mention other toys, or if you bring video game consoles or whatever you do. I can see that leading to a lot of problems. I guess in my mind, this is like the difference between actually being there and seeing how kids behave, just like Tracy was talking about, and how bad things can happen, to me just imagining, two kids, as kids are playing and sliding down the slides, the maple tree is above them, the leaves are coming off, it's fall, and they're standing there looking at each other's cards, trading them, slapping high fives with each other, being all excited. I guess that just exists in my imagination. That's probably not how it actually is. Then you have the other kid that runs up and takes a card and then goes running off, and then the kid starts crying, runs to the teacher, they can't get the card back, the card gets ripped in half, the parent calls, everyone gets upset, Pokemon cards get banned. Welcome to reality. But again, all it takes is a couple bad eggs to spoil the whole bunch, right? Anyways, thank you for the insight on the Pokemon thing. I take back all of the things I said about kids should be able to do what they want on their recess time. It can lead to problems. It really can. Next one comes from Tavern Bricks. He or she says, I don't know why I picture everyone listening as a male, because we found out that that's not the case. He or she says, or he or she or whatever they want to be, says, keep up the great work. I enjoy listening every week while I'm busting my butt at work. It's a great escape. Commenting on how people do not comment on podcasts made me think. It takes just a minute, and I never do this. Having a Lego podcast, I would love to do this too. Not that I live or die on the hill of listener feedback, but kind of nice to have it. So here's your feedback. Good job. Hashtag you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. LOL. Well, thank you for tuning in. Hey, I totally understand. If you're doing something important right now, which many of you are probably multitasking, like you're driving a forklift, you're driving in general, you're on a roof right now, pounding shingles on, whatever you're doing, don't feel like you need to say anything. I do love to hear back from you, especially in situations where you can call me out for being wrong. That's the best kind. But it is, I think this adds like a nice element to it, and I just love to hear from you guys. But if you're busy, and like for me, the podcast I listen to, I don't really have much of a listener feedback segment or really include that. So I listen to podcasts each week that I enjoy thoroughly, like religiously listen to, and I never leave any feedback. Now, I oftentimes think about it. I think like, oh my gosh, I just love this guy. I just love this podcast. I love the time that I get to listen to this. And it's one of those things that's important to me, but I don't actively go out and tell that person that. And maybe that would make a big difference in their life. So I'm trying to make a point of doing that more. And I think we actually have more comments like that here too. Like this one from Spacetime Brick Studio, who's a longtime Craggle fan. He says he's a longtime listener, first-time commenter. Trying to challenge myself to leave a comment on every video I watch as a personal goal. I usually listen to these while driving for work, but this week I decided to watch my PC while working there. And then he goes on to say, so happy you found Silver Surfer animated show. I love that series. My first time seeing so many Marvel characters like Beta Ray Bill, Drax, Thanos, and so many more. Yeah, we saw Thanos in the episode that we watched. That kind of got overshadowed by Avatar. I hope you're not mad, but man, Avatar is like, I don't feel like Clark was really vibing with Silver Surfer as much as I was, but Avatar were both like all in. But yeah, I do that too. It's particularly like on the Lego stuff. If I watch somebody's Lego video, I try to leave a comment on their video because I know how nice it is to have somebody support you, especially if you have a smaller channel and you're like, hey, I really loved how you did that, or this is a really well done video. Never anything rude. I feel like there is literally no reason to ever leave a rude comment on someone's videos or some type of criticism, unless it's constructive. Like, hey, I like how you compared these cameras, but if you could have done like a side-by-side comparison, that would be great. And I think that's helpful. But if you're going to be nasty to someone, just don't watch the video. Don't criticize people. You can leave a dislike if you want to, whatever that is. But I'll say a negative or hurtful comment hurts way more, or brings you more pain than the joy of 10 really nice comments does. And I don't think it's necessary to be nasty or rude. But just like the recess playground or whatever, all it takes is a couple people. Somebody that's unhappy in their life and they feel the need to like bring that to others. Just unnecessary. The world has enough of that. This is Cody's thing. She lives by this. Be the change that you want to see in the world, right? Gandhi, be the change you want to see in the world. I think that's a great philosophy to live by. Just be what you want to be. Oh, Mellow Cat's climbing the wall. All right. I gave her water. I think she needs food. So I'll have to hobble my booty over there and get her hooked up here. I thought she was actually hung up in the screen. She got her claw in the screen And she was like hanging there. Anyways, we got a couple more listener feedbacks here. Actually, one more. 1 second, Mellow Cat. This one is from Dren Chavez. He says, I would definitely recommend... Oh, this is funny. I put this at the very end because it's funny. I would definitely recommend Avatar: The Last Airbender. It has a good simple storyline for Clark to understand, but enough action for you to enjoy as well. Another great episode. What fantastic advice you have. I love the show. And I love doing this show too. And I hope you enjoy or love. I won't go as far as love this, but I hope this was worth your time. We're nearing 1 hour deep. So if you made it this far, you are what I call a survivor. I hope you got some value out of this, even if it was just taking an hour out of your busy work life or schedule to escape, because that seems to be the norm. It's awesome. I appreciate you all. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll report back next week about my where I'm at in the world of foot injuries. Take care, and we'll find you in the next Missing Pieces.